Welcome to Rotor Talk Live, Season 4, Episode 46. Very special guest, Rick Smith from Drone Valley. Rick, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, Bill. How you been?
Oh, it's been a minute since we've talked last, but it's absolutely great to have you on the show. I kind of figured with your silence, you had a stack of NDAs on your desk.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of months. I've been really lucky. There's like 4 or 5 different products that are still coming that I'm kind of under the wraps of. But with the DJI stuff, it came in a flood. Like I didn't know when it was coming. I didn't know what was coming. But it's one of those mysterious things where you get a phone call and it's like, hey, this is so-and-so from DJI. Can we talk? And, then you sign the papers and you have to go underground for a couple of weeks. So
yeah, and I know, I kind of sort of know what that's like, and it's so hard. And it was like, well, it's Spin Up this week. Of course, they gave away a Mavic 3 at Spin Up. Ray Kelly won it, which is great. If you've ever met Ray's a great guy. I just absolutely love him. But having the ability to do that, but the whole thing, it's just like we got a lot I want to go over. First, I want to talk about the Action 2 a little bit.
Yep.
Great concept. I mean, instantly, it hit me like a light, Rick, that this was made for FPVs. Okay. I mean, it just jumped out. It screamed. This is why we did it like this kind of a thing.
Yeah. I'm not so sure. I did some testing with it. I did a clip on the channel where I was testing it, and I flew it on the Air 2S. And the problem with it is it's a wonderful camera, and I like it a lot. And I know people are giving DJI grief for the heat, because it does get a little bit warm when you're using it, especially in 4K. But you got to remember, it's an action camera, right? So having it outside around air would be a good thing. So if you're recording it on a tripod and you're going 4K for an hour, it's going to get hot on you. But the bigger problem with slapping it on a drone is that the magnetics built into this, the bottom of this thing, are unbelievably strong. So when you put this thing on top of a drone, you've got to keep it pretty far away from the drone body, because that magnetics is going to definitely interfere with the compass. And that's what I found with the 2S. It flew okay, but I found that it was drifting a lot. Like it kind of lost its way when it got up in the air, not quite sure where it was in 3D space. So I'm not sure. I mean, the form factor is perfect, but the technology, I think, is going to prevent it from going on a lot of FPVs.
Wow. Okay. That kind of surprises me, because, that's one of the things I'm like, the compactness of it and separating the monitor from the body and everything. Yeah. That just kind of like, wow, that's a great concept, a great idea. But yeah, you're right. As far as that's concerned, I never thought about that, Rick.
Yeah. And I think what's really perfect about this one, I love it so much, is that you got the camera, it's got internal memory, and it's got a battery internally. I'd go for a little less than an hour, something like that. But this is small enough where I can clamp it on my hat. I can throw it on the lanyard. You almost forget. You can put it up in the dashboard on a suction mount, and you almost forget you have it. It's just that small. I had it in my pocket the other night. We went to a show. I could record a little bit of the show. It was okay to do that. But I think it's a wonderful camera in a tiny little package. And I honestly, Bill, was a little disappointed too that I couldn't use it like on FPV. But I'm just concerned that with that magnet, I mean, I'll have to test it a little bit more, but just with the 2S, it kind of freaked out when it got up in the air, and I was like, all right, that's enough.
And I got to say this, while you're talking about the 2S, okay? Rick, I have to say this, it has been one of my favorite drones. I mean, I can't find a fault with it. As much as I would like to, I can't.
Yep. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And I know I get accused, you probably get the same accusations of being a DJI fanboy, but that 2S with the 1-inch sensor on it at the price point they've got it, with the obstacle avoidance built in, the smoothness in flight. When I have people, I just put up a bunch of clips on the Mavic 3, and I understand it's an expensive drone. I agree that it's an expensive drone. And what I said in the unboxing clip was what DJI tried to do with that drone, I think, was to blend sort of some of the Inspire audience with some of the Phantom 4 audience and some of the Mavic audience. So it's kind of a witch's brew of all 3 of those different flyers. And it really is more of a professional drone than it is a consumer drone. But if you need that kind of quality and you really want that drone, it's not going to be cheap, because there's a lot of tech built into it. But the alternative, which I think is like 85% the same experience, is drop down to the 2S. You don't get quite as long a flight time out of it, but it flies plenty long. 1-inch camera. It's got the 4K recording on it. It's just beautiful in flight. And for about $1,000, I mean, you've got a phenomenal drone.
Really
so I agree with you. It's my favorite drone up to the Mavic 3.
it's like, I thought I could, I sold my Phantom 4 because it was just, I loved my Phantom 4. Don't get me wrong. But, it was like, having to go out and take it out somewhere. It was laborious. I mean, it's a chore to take that. The Air 2S, I mean, it's just like, boom.
It's with me most days. It's on the floor of my car, and I'll drive around a lot. I'll go do errands or whatever. I'll go visit family. And invariably, I'll find some place I haven't seen before. And I know we're supposed to be there at 2 o'clock, but honey, I have to pull over because that is a beautiful shot. I'm putting the drone up. It's not easy to bring it along. It's just a lot of fun.
It is. And I think DJI really hit a home run with that. And, it's been 3 years since the Mavic 2 came out. And since we were all at Brooklyn at the Douglas Center, and,
that was nice.
That whole experience there. And, fast forwarding to the release last week, all right, and the video from the release. And, one of the things that really kind of surprised me at first, and this is probably not to do with the video, but actually with the release, was DJI usually has it available for sale before the release time, okay? They did not have it available for sale until you heard him in the video say, and now it's available for sale.
Right.
I checked the whole time. Both Best Buy and DJI's website didn't have it available. That was unusual for them.
Yeah, it is. But again, you and I go back a long way with DJI. You remember when the Mavic Pro came out and how they announced it, and then they didn't have it, and we all bought it, and it was like weeks and weeks and weeks waiting for it to come. And there was a big scuttlebutt with DJI about how do you release a product and not have stock on a product, and I think they learned their lesson there, where it got out to the distributors early enough on this one. But the other challenge you've got is if you're a company like DJI and you're trying to build up momentum for the release to keep it as much of a secret as you can, and you send it out to distributors early, somebody in that distributor's warehouse or one of their employees, they know how hot that topic is for conversation. And they're going to start up a YouTube channel. They're going to take one from the warehouse, open it up, take pictures of it. So leaks start. So there's that delicate, do we ship it early? Do we ship it right at the release date? So they've got to kind of protect their intellectual property as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's like, and I have to say this with some of the leaks. Okay, I think it was Jasper Ellen's 27 leaks or something like that. I have to say this. Some of those, let me put you this way: DJI doesn't turn their back to some of these. Okay, so that some of these get slipped out, and it's unofficially blessed kind of a thing. Because it helps create some momentum, and it really kind of picked interest up in the group. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk about with you at first is the price. Now, one of the things that we discussed here was, and I told people this, ahead of time. I said, unless you're, let's say, and I'll use, for lack of a couple of great examples, unless you're professional like maybe Ken or Billy, and do this for a living, okay? I said, do not get the Cine version, okay? You don't. Number one, you need to have incredible processing power on your PC or Mac at home, okay? Because you just can't have a regular standard PC and expect to be able to process that. And everybody goes, oh, it has 1 terabyte onboard storage. I said, do you know how fast that's going to get eaten up with Apple ProRes? When you do that, I mean, it's just, I said, do yourself a big favor. I said, don't even think about it. People say, well, I can't get that smart control. I really want to get that. And I found out about a week before that the smart controller was going to be available a la carte, if you will, being able to get it individually. So I told him, I said, don't be buying it just to get the smart controller. Okay. And people were like, that kind of makes sense to do something like that,
Yeah, I think I agree with you. So what do we got? $2,200 for the base model, $29.95 for the Firmware combination, and then $5,000, $49.95 for the Cine version. And I shouldn't talk bad about DJI, but I'm an honest guy. $5,000 for a drone that I'm not going to render in 4K most times, and that higher resolution, even for professional shoots that I do, they're okay with standard 4K resolution or even 1080p if they're going to put it up on the web, like if it's for commercial advertising. It's overkill. And just the mechanics of the technology, in addition to that, remember, you got a solid state drive in there, so you're right, that fills up a lot. but how do I get those bits off that solid state drive to my computer? You're going to do it through the USB-C connection. How long is it going to take you to transfer half a terabyte of data to your computer while that drone's sitting on your desk powered up, right? So that transfer of data is a pain in the neck. Then you get it in your computer. You got to have a couple of GPUs in your computer to be able to process that and edit that software, or I should say edit that footage, and then render that footage. So every step in that process takes time. And if you're doing this commercially, we try to do 6-7 houses in a day some days, when we're doing commercial work. I can't spend 12 hours rendering that kind of footage when I get home. And then the other overarching thing is, I know it's the coolest one. It's got the smart controller. It's the biggest, baddest, drone on the planet. But if you're not going to use it, you now have a $5,000 investment flying around the countryside. Not that it's going to go out of control and you're going to lose it, but accidents happen. And you go with the Fly More, you can buy 2 of those almost for what you're paying for that cine. So if you're a professional photographer, that's totally up to you. I know guys spend that kind of money on a lens, but for me, I just can't recommend it for the average flyer. It's overkill, to be honest with you.
I agree 100%. And you spend $5,000, and if you go out on DJI's website, guess what you can get, Rick? You can get an Inspire 2. I mean, it's a watered down version of it, but you can still get one. So it's like,
but that's not. But even the Inspire 2, like I got an Inspire 2. I probably fly it once or twice a month, if that. It sits on the shelf. It's down here in the shop. The guy, it's a great looking bird. It goes up. It flies great. But most of what I would do with that, I can easily do right now with an Air 2S. Okay, it's not as great a resolution. It doesn't really have all the camera attachments and all that stuff. But 80% of what I'm doing commercially is totally fine with 4K or even 1080p if they're going to publish on the web. So, and it's a big bird. It's a big deal to take it with you. Everybody notices it when it's up in the air. So if you fly an Inspire 2 in a neighborhood, they're going to show up with pitchforks and torches, looking for the guy flying that scary drone up there, right? So small, quiet. That's what I'm looking for. Just another
small and quiet. And one of the things that I was really pleased to see that DJI finally I'll call it, for lack of a better term, a smart return to home system now. Compared to the way it used to do it, it used to rise to the preset altitude and then just make a beeline kind of a thing. And now it uses the sensors on board, and it calculates, and it just kind of it's unbelievable what it does.
Yeah, and Skydio really started a lot of that artificial intelligence inside the drones. Up until now, drones have been reactive. So they've got a ton of sensors. They have certain logic inside that if the sensor senses something, it'll stop the drone. It'll try to go above it. It'll try to go around it. But the artificial intelligence is a whole different level of intelligence inside the drone. So with the DJI Mavic 3, it can sense up to a couple hundred yards out a 3D landscape of what's coming. And it's already, before it gets close to those obstacles, planning a way around, above, or over this way to get around them. In addition to that, it does keep track of telemetry. So when you're flying out, it knows how you got there. And it may use that path to get home, depending on how low the battery is. So it's going to pick the fastest, most efficient path back to that return point, because it knows it's got very little power left in the battery. So you're going to see a lot more with that artificial intelligence as well, because the APAS on this thing, have you flown yours yet? I know you had one ordered.
I have. Yeah, it's just here. This is a real interesting thing. Okay. Yep. I don't know how many people have ordered theirs from Best Buy, but Best Buy informed me that now it won't come until the 24th of November. Yeah. So I just went ahead, canceled the order with Best Buy, reordered it from DJI. I'm getting a shipping notice tomorrow, so I'll probably have it by the end of the week. So,
well, you're gonna notice a big improvement in the APAS, that automatic pilot assistance. They've gotten way better with that. It's not quite the level of Skydio, but again, Skydio, when that drone came out, I shouldn't be bragging about it, but when Skydio came out, because we're talking about DJI, but when Skydio came out with that drone, they had the Jetson chipset in there, which if you're involved with Internet of Things, you understand that's the key artificial intelligence chipset. That drone was 2 generations ahead of anything in the sky at that point. It was like a flying robot that its only mission in life was to dodge stuff, to keep track of you and dodge everything around it. The downside was it was a bit of an annoying co-pilot if you're a flyer, because you want to do something and it's second guessing you wherever you're going. But DJI is not quite there yet. But this drone, the brains inside this drone, the chipset inside this drone, has the potential to be pretty close to what Skydio's doing with the automated features. The one thing Skydio still got going for it, and I was kind of hoping it would show up in the Mavic 3, is they've got that trinocular vision where they've got 3 sensors, and with those 3 sensors, as opposed to 2 binocular sensors, they can get a much cleaner look at a surface and obstacles around it. So it's a little bit, it's like chess versus checkers in a lot of ways when you have the third sensor in there. But you know, I think it's fine the way it is, Mavic 3.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You know, and one of the things about the Mavic 3 that just, you know, just one of the things that jumped out at me was the battery. Okay, I can't say enough, and you know, and I know when you've had us on, we've had you on before, and you know, there's only so much, you know, and I'm going to paraphrase you from when you were on. There's only so much you can do in a confined space with that battery, with the cells. I don't know how they did it, Rick. I do not know how they did it.
A couple of things, and I've had a lot of conversations in the background, because this thing first showed up, I had no briefing documents. It showed up, I think you saw the box, it was just a white box. It didn't even have lettering on the box. And basically it showed up, and I had a couple of pages of briefing documents, and when I read through them, I had a million questions about, okay, 46 minutes, really, with this kind of battery, it's LiPo technology, where's the magic? What are you doing here? And what it comes down to is, if you look close when you get yours, the props are different. So the props have little rubber edges on the end, right at the end where the that sort of airfoil whip up is on the hard props. That's there for efficiency. So it settles down those eddy currents coming off the end of the props. They built in better motors, better ASICs. The engineering in the chipset is better. So what they've done is taken pretty much the tightest package they can get for a LiPo and made the entire drone way more efficient to drink less electrons when it's flying, which is really the key, because I talked about energy density on the channel, and it becomes this law of diminishing returns where you can pack so many electrons into a battery, and if you want to put more in there, it gets bigger and it gets heavier. So that means you need more energy to fly the drone. You can see where that's going. So they hit the pivot point, I think, on this one. It's perfect at that 46. You're not going to get 46 minutes, but as I said in the first clip, I kept thinking to myself, I got to bring the drone in and change the battery. And I'd look down at the controller, and I got 35% left, and it's just felt so unnatural to have it up that long.
Yeah, you know, and you know, and I harken back to the Spark, okay?
Yep.
And I say, God bless the Spark, okay? You know, it did what it did, and it did it well. But the real Achilles heel of that drone was the battery life, okay? You're up there, you're getting a good shot, you know, great video, you're shooting some good, and then next thing you know, you hear. You see the beep and you're at 15%. You got to come back, and you know, it was a killjoy. It was one of those things that was just like, oh. But you know what? This is one of the things that I'm really excited about with the Mavic 3 is the runtime on this. Okay, because you're up there. You know, say for instance, okay, here in Tampa, you know, one of my favorite spots to go shoot is the Skyway Bridge because it's extremely photogenic. Okay. And it does take, it's a little bit of a jog out there, and it does take some battery life to get out there. But conversely, you know, it's not one of those, you know, I did it with the original Mavic Pro, but by the time I got to the bridge, okay, I had calculated I had maybe 30 seconds of runtime while I was there, and then I had to flip around and come back home. It won't be like that with this, and that's what excites me about this. Is it gives you more time. It gives, you know, I'll say content creators or, you know, videographers. It gives you more time at the place you are focusing on to shoot. Okay, and I can't say enough about that, Rick.
No, I'm with you 100%. It's sort of like when you're, the analogy I'll use is maybe you're a hiker and you want to get to the peak because that's the view of the valley. That's really what the money is all about, getting up to the top there so you can enjoy that beautiful view of the valley. But if it takes you 2 hours to get up there and you're exhausted and you only have 10 minutes at the top of the peak to look down in the valley, then you got to hike back down before it gets dark. That's sort of the challenge with the battery, is that you want to get out on target as quickly as you can, but have as much time on target as possible, because that's the whole mission, is to get there and get that beautiful footage on target. And having a longer battery life is a wonderful thing. They're also, for my money, they're more resilient too, for some reason. I feel like, I don't know, I don't see the decay in the battery. If I leave it around a while, it'll still discharge, but I don't have that. I've only flown it, I don't know, 50, 60 times on one particular battery, which is the one I'm metricing. I don't notice a decrease in the capacity for charge. It doesn't get lazy like some of the other batteries do, where it charges to 100%, you get it in the field, and all of a sudden it's down to 80%, just flying 2 minutes. Now, I know it's brand new and all, but that there is a pattern of decay to batteries that you can tell a good battery from a bad battery in LiPo. So
yeah, and it's, you know, it's one of the things for me that just got me excited. And I was actually expecting the batteries to actually cost more than they did, I mean, you know, we're talking about on a $2,100 drone, and you know, and again, the engineers on DJI, they did a fantastic job where they put the battery. Okay,
Yeah.
I really like that. They really kind of hit a home run with that, Rick. I mean, you know,
the whole thing, the whole design is just beautiful. I've got it right here. You've seen the bra holder.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were laughing about that. I actually like it a lot because the previous versions had that not stupid, but that little plastic thing you had to kind of fiddle with to get it on there. It always popped off in your bag. This isn't going anywhere, and they've got a magnet holding on up top so you can pop it off. But you're right about the battery. I mean, the way this thing is designed, it's just a beast. I mean, it looks cool if you're into that kind of thing, but it's just, it looks like it means business, you know. And the battery in the back, again, the way that slides in there, that's got to be 40% of the body is just the battery, just the cavity for the battery. So that's a beefy battery. And the other thing you got to remember, Bill, is that DJI doesn't make these batteries, right? Nobody does. They send them out to companies that build batteries, and a year before they're going to release the product, they're going to say to them, look, we need a battery. It's got to look like this. Here are the specs to design the case. Here's the capacity we want in the battery. We want a very efficient LiPo battery. And then the engineers at DJI consider that power plant and then have to design the electronics to be as efficient as possible against that power plant. One of the things that they didn't really talk much about is the arms. Like, if you look at these arms, they're incredibly thin. When I first saw those, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a very fragile drone. I probably shouldn't say this, but I've actually run into a tree with this already once, where I had the sensors off and I was goofing around trying to get this perfect shot. This thing took a spill from about 30 feet up, landed in sand, but still it hit the tree pretty hard. Not a scratch on it. I mean, it's very, very durable. But the beauty of this is, again, aerodynamically thinner in the air, less resistance than the bigger arms that stick out. They're wider out. You've got bigger props. And again, the rubber endings on these props are really, you can't see it in the camera, but this orange part at the end is rubber. And that, again, at the end of that prop with the plastic props is going to vibrate like mad when it's going through the air. This kind of softens that a little bit. So those eddy currents that would normally develop at the end of the prop that slow it down and waste energy are going to be gone because it's going to settle that down. So every aspect of this from the ground up has been a design challenge for them. But I know I sound like I rave about these guys all the time, but I appreciate good technology. And man, the engineers at DJI nailed it with this one.
Yeah, I have to say that. And you know, one of the things that I try to remind people about is, you know, you need a drone, and we had talked about this, and somebody brought this up, and this was great because, you know, the price of the Mavic 3, and somebody said, well, if you didn't get a Hubsan Xeno Mini Pro, if you didn't get a Fimi Mini, if you didn't get the other Hubsan Mini, it adds up. If you didn't get the Fimi X8 SE 2022,
right,
you know,
right.
These kind of things, you know, it adds up. And these are drones. I mean, you know, God bless Marcus and Ron, especially Marcus. I mean, you know, he takes these out and he's tried these. Well, what his with the Fimi Mini, Rick, he's on his fourth one from Fimi.
Wow.
I mean, you know, he's very persistent. Okay. And he wants to get these to work, and I don't blame him. But one of the things that somebody brought up is, you know, well, you know, you're buying all these, you know, that's a good chunk of money towards a Mavic 3, you know.
Right. Yeah, I had a guy the other day send me an email, and he was complaining about the prices. A lot of people have an opinion of what it should cost. I don't know how you come up with that, because for me, if I want something, the company that built it gets to price it. And if I don't like the price, I don't buy it. I buy something else, because consumers can vote with their dollars. So I would never, as a consumer, pretend to say that's too expensive. How do I know it's too expensive? If I can't afford it, I just won't buy it. I'll buy something else. But what I was trying to get across to this person I was talking to is, they said, well, I got this drone, I got that drone, I got this drone. You know, this Mavic 3 is way too expensive. And I said to him, sell those other drones. Why do you need 4 drones? What can those other drones do that this guy can't do in a single drone? If you really want this drone, you'll probably get $1,000, $1,500 out of all the stuff you've described back. So you're looking at a $600-700 investment to get up in the air in a Mavic 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You can't, and you can't beat that. And then, you know, the thing is, you know, you want to be able to get to your destination. You want to be able to come back. You want to have obstacle avoidance. You want something that's going to check all the boxes. And then you want a quality camera, okay? Because, you know, one of the things that frustrated me, I had a Fimi X8 SE 2020. And one of the things that frustrated me was it seems like Fimi could never get a level horizon in their drones. Okay. It was like a constant battle with firmware updates, getting it taken care of, and then next thing you know, that horizon tilt, it's like I do a flip about and, and it tilts, and then I do another flip and then it's right. And I'm like, no, you know what? I want something that's going to work consistently out of the box. Okay.
Right.
That's one thing that, and I went back and I took a look at how much I paid just for the drone for the Mavic 2 3 years ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around $1,400 without the Firmware. Okay. Yep. And I'm telling people, okay, a $600 increase for this, I said, think about this, okay? Because I did major in business in college, okay? And we had to go through a computer simulation of running a company and, spending money on marketing, advertising, research and development, everything, all right, and the technology. You figure the leap in technology from a Mavic 2 to the Mavic 3, okay? It's a pretty doggone big leap, okay? And that $600, I think it's easily justified, Rick.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, you could point to some of the developments they've had and some of the other drones, right? There's essentially 3 categories now for DJI in the consumer space. There's the mini category, there's the middle category, and there's the pro category, which this is part of the pro category. The middle category, the Air 2, Air 2S kind of dominates that space. And the Mini, Mini 2, whatever's coming next will be in the mini space. That small category and the mid category, they're similar airframes. When you look at the Air 2S, 80% of the engineering for that airframe is pretty similar to the Air 2. Same thing with the minis, right? If you look at the Mini 2, the Mini SE, they're reusing a lot of core technology, molding, plastics, all the things that they've got. The suppliers are lined up. The colors are pretty static. So there's not a lot of money invested in that. When you look at the Mavic 3 and compare this to the Mavic 2, 2.5 years of development, engineering, an entirely new airframe, a new camera system up front, completely designed from the ground up with Hasselblad. Everything about this is a moon launch kind of a development. And then having these teams work on all this stuff independently is great to get obstacle avoidance working and better ESCs and better propellers over here because they're the propulsion people. And then you get a battery group over here. Then you get all together and it has to fit into a package and then actually work with the software. It's a miracle these things take off. So when you tell me that it's more expensive, I expected that. I'm not saying it's not an expensive drone. It is. And I've said that to everybody who's asked. I think it's a very expensive drone. But for what it does and for what you're getting, the ton of tech they've built into this thing, to me, justifies the price. And if it's too expensive, and I know it is for some people, look at the Air 2S. And if that's too expensive, look at the Mini 2. If that's too expensive, when this hit the market, I'm guaranteeing you there's going to be a lot of Mavic 2s up for grabs that are going to be reasonably priced that people are selling secondhand. Same thing with the Air 2S. They're going to upgrade to a Mavic 3. So keep your eyes open. I mean, I've never been a bigot about what I fly. I fly everything from the cheapest, $40 drones. I put those up all the time in the house, all the way up through this or an Inspire. I'm a huge fan of people flying what they like. There's no such thing as my dad can beat up your dad over drones, right? We can have that argument, but at the end of the day, let's just go fly. Let's just have a good time and go outside and fly the drones and have fun.
Exactly. And one of the things, Rick, is, and I've said this before, and I'm glad you mentioned this here. Okay. It's like, people say, oh, well, you only fly DJI. And I say, well, you know what? Maybe, you need to go back and start taking a look at some of my videos because I've flown a Hubsan Zeno, I've flown a Zeno 2, I've flown a Fimi Mini, I've flown, I've flown the Fimi X8 SE 2020. I have other drones besides DJI products. And I think one of the things that I encourage people to do is, if they can afford it, to get some of these drones and to find out, okay, and compare, because a lot of times people, they have this idea that when they spend that money for that drone, they want, a Hubsan or a Fimi, they want it to be like a DJI drone, and it's not, okay? Right. I mean, and I'll give you a real quick example here, okay? When Hubsan had their launch for their mini drone,
yep.
I don't know if you saw that. It was a disaster.
Yeah, I did. It was too early. They shouldn't have.
Oh my God!
And that 40-minute flight time, the risk they were taking by putting that drone up for 40 minutes on a live broadcast for the benefit they got out of that, proving it could fly that long. I don't know who decided to do that, but it wasn't a good move.
No, it wasn't, and it was just, and it was, and besides the fact it was unprofessional. I mean, I just thought, it's like they would say something in Chinese. then they would say it in English, and it was just wow. Okay.
Well, let me take their side for a second, because I have reviewed their products. I've gotten pretty close to some of the people at Hubsan, and I'm not defending them. I'm just trying to explain where they're coming from. They've been, both Fimi and Hubsan have both been sort of, I don't want to call them toy drone manufacturers, but on that lower end of the spectrum as far as what they're building with the drones. They started off with a lot of fixed cameras without gimbals. They moved into the gimbal space. Moving from fixed camera to gimbal it's like you're inventing things from scratch to try to get a gimbal stabilized. Now, there are off-the-shelf things you can buy to help with that, but you still have to build it and engineer it and build software behind it. So they've now gotten decent stabilized gimbal drones that they can use. Now they're trying to move into what I'll call the prosumer space. So that Xeno Mini Pro was really their first entree into competitive drone in that sub 250 gram space. Now I don't know if I told you, but I got the new SE. I haven't reviewed it yet. I'm going to tear into this in a little bit. This is their answer to the original Mavic Mini, right? So it's a less expensive Xeno Mini Pro. It's a Xeno Mini SE. So they're trying to do things in that space. You've probably already seen they've got something coming out in the mid space that's going to compete with the Air 2S, purportedly with a 4/3 sensor on it. So that's going to be an interesting release. But getting back to their development engine, a lot of this stuff isn't intuitive. It's not like smart people get together in a room, brilliant engineers, and they come out with a drone that works. It works a little, got to be tweaked. And DJI has gotten to the point where they can reuse a lot of the tech. They've got the same engineers working on the new models. So you can't beat that tribal knowledge of how we got to this from the early days of the Phantom 2, right? So they'll get there. And I've said before, love them or hate them, and I like them all. I'm not going to pick on them. I fly the Skydio. I've got it behind me. What else have I got back? There's a Parrot, Bebop. I've got the other Anafi in the other room. I like them all. But competition's a good thing. Like having another company lay out a drone in the mini space to say, you know what, we're going to take a shot at you with this Xeno Mini Pro. People at DJI are going to look at that and go, well, it's not quite a Mini 2 yet, but that's kind of scary. They're getting close, right? And if they release something in the mid space with a 4/3 sensor, everybody's going to take notice. So I applaud that kind of brave, let's take a shot at the market, because that's millions of dollars of investment. And yeah, they were a little sloppy in the launch. Their marketing teams are getting up to speed. They're not a DJI, but DJI's got 2 big buildings in China that they own, and they build robots and cameras and gimbals and all kinds of things. So it's really David and Goliath kind of debate.
Well, and you brought up a good point, Rick, because competition is good. Okay. When DJI puts out a product, and I think, part of the thing was, with Fimi, and this is something I'll answer, they wanted to beat Hubsan out with their mini drone. That's why they put theirs out. And it was another disaster from the get-go. Yep. But conversely, I have to say this. Hubsan's customer service is really kind of hit or miss, but Fimi's, they're very responsive. I'm really impressed, because Marcus is on his 4th Fimi Mini, and they've responded to him, and they've gotten him back the drone quickly. I mean, it's directly from China, so there's no really point here in the United States. It's directly from China, and I was impressed with that. Yeah.
I think, it's hard. Even DJI gets knocks for their customer service. They've gotten a lot better over the years. Bill, you got to remember, you and I go back to, and a lot of your viewers go back to the early days of drones, where we were sort of putting them together ourselves and flying RCs back 20 years ago that were gas powered. This technology in a decade, less than a decade, has gone from experimental, kind of interesting, cool stuff to wildly sophisticated, and the market's exploded. So a company like DJI, that's by any measure the leader in that space, right? 80% of the market share, went from a small company that was designing one model of drone, to a company that designs a ton of stuff. And you have to keep up with your service people at the same time. So their support services have to scale, their distributors have to scale. So I think we're a year or two away from them becoming along the lines of an Apple or a Samsung or a GE, somebody that can respond to a phone call when you make the phone call. I think their online are pretty responsive. And I think Fimi and Hubsan are a little behind the curve on that. They're going to get there, though, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's like a stay tuned kind of a thing, because I think they'll get there. And the competition is good because it helps everybody, and the consumer wins when there's a lot of good competition out there.
Yep. And I like the Xeno Mini Pro. I thought it was a great drone. I flew it a lot. I got a lot of grief for it too, man. There are a lot of people that are angry at Hubsan. When I put that clip up, They came out of the woodwork at me, and I'm like, dude, I didn't design the drone. I'm just reviewing the drone. I'm being honest about what I see, but they were coming out swinging, and I'm like, where's all this hate coming from? I didn't do anything. I'm just reviewing the drone.
Oh yeah, I have a mini group on Facebook, and wow, yeah, it's very heated on there. Let me tell
It
you
is.
that.
I had no idea what I was stepping into with that one, but anyway.
Well,
Pretty
know,
funny.
one of the things I've been getting a ton of questions about is a smart controller. Okay. And the compatibility issue.
Yep.
You know, hey, Kestelou finally put that to rest today. He put an article out on Drone XL that said the original smart controller is not compatible, you know, with the Mavic 3.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not happy about that. Well, I kind of told people, Rick, and I said, you know, think about this, okay? The new smart controller is OcuSync 3 or OS 3, okay?
Yep.
The original smart controller is OS 2, okay? You know, it's like apples and oranges. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I've got a clip coming up on it, but I'll give you some hints here. So when you think about the technology inside the smart controller, really what it's doing is it's communicating with the drone over some kind of telemetry, some type of transmission topology, I should say, but it's all based on Wi-Fi, 2.4, 5.8 gigahertz. So what DJI has done with their OcuSync technology is layered an algorithm on top of that Wi-Fi carrier, 2.4, 5.8, that does amazing things. It'll shift frequencies either side. It'll keep track of the frequencies that are going on. It's gotten way better on keeping track of that and keeping the drone in sync. But fundamentally, OcuSync, OcuSync 2, OcuSync 3 are all riding on the same transmission topology, same frequency band. The only difference is how they move the data from the drone back to the controller for telemetry control of the drone and reporting back what it's doing. But more importantly, it's streaming the video. So with the smart controller, I think, my personal opinion, you're not tripping over the OcuSync 2 connection. You're tripping over the streaming of the video. That controller is built on Android 5 years ago. The processor in there can't handle 1080p streaming. So if I was at DJI, if I was in the engineering department, I'd say, you know what? Let's build a bimodal into that controller, the smart Gen 1 smart controller, where it'll transmit. We can fake the OcuSync 3. That's just an algorithm. We can download firmware to do that. It's really the streaming of that video at 1080p. Just like with the Air 2S, let's knock that down to 720 and let them use their Gen 1 controller. That's what I would do. And I don't think technically there's much that's going to prevent that. Now, it doesn't work. I'm not trying to say it works. It doesn't work. But I think it's less the OcuSync 3 and more the streaming of that video back to the controller that's tripping it up. Just like if you had, this is the iPad Mini 5. If you're trying to use an iPad Mini 2 or 3, you can't handle the DJI Fly app. It just can't handle processing that live stream coming back. It trips over itself. That's the same thing with the smart controller. So I think that 2S was about as far as they could stretch it.
You know, I agree. You know, and one of the things that kind of surprised me, and you know, a lot of people were kind of hoping that, you know, with a controller, even though it was, you know, it was leaked, it was going to be like the Air 2S kind of type controller, that they would have the telemetry data that was on the original Mavic Pro, because a lot of people really like that, including myself. Okay, and then we saw it come out, and I'm like, you know, you're paying this a nice penny and breaking a big piggy bank to pay for the Mavic 3, and you're getting the same smart controller as like the Air 2, Air 2S.
All right, so here are two smart controllers. I'm going to put you to the test. Here's two smart controllers. One of these is from the Air 2S, and the other one's from the Mavic 3. Can you tell the difference between them?
Nope.
You can't. They're exactly the same. Now, why would you do that? You do that to lower the cost, because if I have to redesign a controller, people are complaining about $2,200 for me to tear this down, reform it, put new molds together, pour plastic, put a display in there. Yeah, it's good. I can do it, but I'm going to raise the price by $200, and then no one's going to want the drone because they're going to be like, well, it's too expensive. So I agree with you that it would have been good to have it in there. I kind of expected, to be honest with you, I call this a Gen 2 controller. Remember the old black ones with the Mavic and some of the smaller drones? That was the Gen 1 to me. There was actually one before that with the Phantoms. But let's say this is the Gen 2. I really expected a Gen 3 to come out that was a modification of this for the Mavic. And I don't know this to be true, but I wouldn't be shocked if there were other Mavic 3 versions coming. So it would be cool to have that for the whole family of drones. But anyway, I think they did it for cost. That's my 2 cents. Just to keep it similar and not have to redesign it.
You know, and one of the things that I've been telling people is, you know, for me personally, and you know, we discussed this before the show. Getting a Triple Tech tablet was a no-brainer for me because of the sun here in Florida. I mean, it's just something, you know, even in the wintertime, you know, the way it hits, you got to have something out here in Florida. It's just absolutely brutal without it, and especially in the summertime. Okay. Now, conversely, you know, up north, you know, it's not so bad as you know, as far as the light is concerned. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, you know, and a lot of people ask me, you know, with the smart controller, okay, are we going to get more new smart controllers in the future? I said, obviously, I said, yes. I said, because, you know, one of the things that I've been preaching since day one on the channel, Rick, I said, DJI does not waste an ounce of technology. Okay. You know, they carry it from A to B to C to D.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean,
So I think with the smart controllers, I mean, it's sort of again, I'm bimodal on this one, right? I like it because I fly a lot of different drones. I like getting on site and having one device that's got a screen built into it, that I charge it, it's with me. I don't have to worry about that I forget the cable, that I charge the phone and not charge the controller. Is the compatible application on there? It's not working. What's going on? So smart controller for me is open the drone, open the controller, and you're flying, right? So commercial work, I said to you early on, is all about time. If I can do 7 jobs in a day instead of 6, there's extra money in my pocket, right? Because this day's only so long, sun's coming down, I got to get as many as I can. So this is a lot quicker. The downside to a smart controller, which a lot of people have pointed out, is that this is a universal device. So I can fly all these drones with it just by snapping it into a controller. And if I trade my drone out, I don't have to worry about going from a 2 to a 2S. Smart controller doesn't work. I bought the Mavic 3. Oh, that smart controller doesn't work. So there's catches on both sides of that. But my bigger question for you, and I haven't got an answer on this yet, maybe Hay answered this. The new controller, how backward compatible is it?
That's a good question.
You buy the new controller. Can I fly my 2S, my Mini 2? Can I fly all my older drones? Or is it only Mavic 3 forward?
That's a good that is a very good question.
Yeah, because if you're going to drop that money, right, you may have other drones.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it makes sense because, you know, I justified getting the original smart controller because I said, and you know, and I had heard whispers at the time, and people were talking about it because it's OcuSync 2.0 and the Phantom 4 Pro V2.0 was OcuSync 2.0 that was going to work with the Phantom 4 V2.0, and sure enough, it did. Okay,
you had beta firmware for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did the beta test for that, and it worked flawlessly. And then, you know, the convenience of being able to have the biggest thing about the smart controller is convenience. Okay, because, you know, all I got to do is that screen, flip it over, boom, done. Okay, it's ready to go. You know, and like you said, I don't have to get a cable on, I don't have to get a mount out. It's all ready to go. But, you know, my mounts are always mounted anyway, so you know, it's not like it's a huge effort to get that controller up and running. You know. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention too was this is an interesting thing. I've been doing a ton of testing on this. I tend to, when I get new technology, I go down in the shop and I'm gone for days. You know, my wife's upstairs. You coming up for dinner? No, I'm downstairs working. Leave me alone. So I'm testing the hell out of everything. So with the new controller, the DJI Fly app loads, as you know, on the smart controller, and the DJI Fly app was updated to work with the Mavic 3. On the smart controller, it doesn't see that in the aircraft management screen. Now, what I'm interested in, moreover, is that the DJI Flapper app is developed by these guys over here. The smart controller came out of the display division. That's a different version on the smart controller of the internals of the Android running behind it. I'm still curious as to why they wouldn't at least give me a wounded version of it to work with the Mavic 3 on the original smart controller. You know, because again, it's not the connection topology they're tripping over. It's just the OcuSync 3, right? So I don't know. We'll have to see where that goes. But I'm like a pit bull with that, because if it's physically impossible, I get it. If it's technically impossible, I get it. But if it's both of those are possible, then why not give it a shot? You know, it's not like they're going to punish old users.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the big things for me, obviously, you know, when it all comes down to brass tacks, you know, it's that the video and the camera with it. What are your thoughts about it on the Mavic?
Yeah, well, I got to tell you that step up to 1080p with the O3 on this is unbelievable. And I use that word a lot when I'm talking about this drone. But the 720 to 1080p, think back when you had your first like high definition TV and it was 720. I can remember like it was yesterday, and I wanted a bigger screen. And I went to my wife and I'm like, look, we got to get a bigger TV. I need a big TV. And she goes, well, this one works fine. What are you talking about? And then I took her to Best Buy or someplace, and she saw that before 4K was out, she saw the 1080p, and it was like you could reach your hand into the screen and grab a fish in the lake. It was that crystal clear. Now imagine that on your display, right? Going from 720, which is good, but it's kind of blocky, to a 1080p live stream, it's unbelievably different. And when you're filming with a better camera like this, you really need to have that clarity to focus on your point of interest, to make sure the framing's right, the color's right, you've got everything set correctly, your exposure's right. So I think this camera is outstanding. It's outstanding. And the dual lensing on it, clever little trick there. I tripped over that, by the way. I put a clip together explaining how the zoom works, and I had it wrong because I was busy testing and rushing through things. But clever the way they did that. And you know how that works. I guess you talked about it or haven't talked about it on the channel?
Yeah.
Okay. You have or haven't? No,
we haven't talked about it.
So what's interesting, I'm probably I'm boring everybody that's watched the clip already, but there are two cameras, right? There's the Hasselblad on the bottom, the 4/3 sensor. That's the main camera for it. Then the camera up top is what they call the zoom camera. But the difference between them is this is a standard 1:1, and the top one has got a telephoto 7x lens in it. So you can't go 1:1 on the top lens. When you go through that camera, you're immediately 7x magnification. And then they apply digital zoom on both cameras. So if you turn on 2x, it's this one on the bottom with 2x, 4x on the bottom. When you flip to the 7x, it flips to the top camera, which is naturally a 7x telephoto. Then you can apply 2x and 4x on top of that to get to 14 and 28. So it's clever because I originally thought, just like in the Mavic 2, that they had optical zoom where I could vary the zoom inside with the lensing. They don't. It's a fixed lens, but it's telephoto. So clever on their part to give you that wide range of magnifications on zoom. And the camera is outstanding. I can't say that enough.
Yeah, that's something I'm just thoroughly excited about. You know, and I know a lot of people, and this is, you know, it's not a huge thing, but big enough, is people were saying they were having a hard time getting their SD cards out of the Mavic 3.
They are, and I was upset about that initially because when you open the door, there's not a lot of room. You can't get your fingers. I got these big chunky fingers. I can't get in there to get it out. But here's the trick: just pull out the battery. So when you pull out the battery, you can grab it because there's now space. So I think it's designed when you pop it out, you can easily pull it out with the battery out. But if your battery's in, you're gonna have a hell of a time getting that SD card out. So there's a little trick I'll pass along to you, free of charge.
There's a free tip, everybody. Okay,
free tip. There you go.
Mark that down. Okay.
I was cursing it, Bill. I'm like, how could they have not fixed this? Come on, we've complained about it for years. But then I had it with the battery out, and I'm like, oh, that's easy. That's the way it should be done.
Now, you know, one of the other things that a lot of people have asked me about is, you know, why, and I know why, okay, but the internal storage, okay, you would think, okay, and I'll go back to Hubsan, okay, because on their minis, you know, they have that internal storage in there, you know, there's no SD card, so, you know, everything's on board and you download it, you know, you hook it up to your PC or Mac and you download it on here, all right? Yep. Conversely here, you know, it's again, you know, the $64,000 question is, why didn't DJI, you know, I know the 1 terabyte and I know why they did it on the city version, but why didn't they up the amount of onboard storage on here, Rick?
They could have very easily. I don't know why they didn't either. It would have been easy to throw 64 gigs on there. It's at the production cost they're buying that stuff. It's pennies difference between the two. But to be honest with you, I don't really want to use my internal storage on any of the drones I'm flying because that means I've got to make a physical connection to the drone so that connection point over time is going to fatigue. And additionally, I don't want to have to power up the drone and treat it like an SD card reader because that's essentially all it is on the Hubsan is the drone becomes your SD card reader. It's got to sit there getting warm on your desk while you're transferring those files over. And if you've recorded 64 gigs of data, it could take a long time over that interface. What's worse is if you're not using a USB-C, you've got an incredibly slow USB interface to move all those files back to your computer. So for me, I never want to use internal storage. The reason I like it in there is because I'm dumb and I'll go out a lot of times rushing to get some filming and I'll leave the SD card home and then I'm out in the lake 10 miles from my house going, so I can at least get 8 gigs of storage and record to it. But I don't want to use the internal storage at all if I can help it.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, I know myself. I've been in that instance where I've gone out to get doing a shoot, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, you know, where's the SD card? You know, and I know where it is. It's sitting on my desk. And
and one other tip I'll give you is people always ask me what's the right SD card to get capacity wise, and my recommendation is always 32 or 64 gigs because they're less expensive. And I like the fact that I've got multiple cards with me and I'll typically halfway through the day, typically third battery change or second battery change, pull the card out, put a fresh one in because cards go bad. And I've never had it happen to me, but I've seen other pilots take a nosedive in the lake. Their card's in that drone. So everything they filmed for that day is now at the bottom of the lake along with their drone. At least with me, that's terrible, but at least I have the morning shooting footage with me for the rest of the day. And that also allows me to hide cards in different areas in my bag. So I've got a card with my road set. I've got a card with my lenses in case I forget, right? So just a little tip there.
Yeah, that is very smart to do that. So, that's one of the things, everybody's saying, how can DJI top what they've done in 2021? Okay. With the amazing amount of products that they've come out with. And you know what I tell everybody? And this is one thing, I know bits and pieces about Frank Wang. Okay. Yep. But, one thing that I do know is he does not want to look in the rearview mirror. Okay. He wants to look ahead. He wants to look forward, and he wants DJI to be numero uno. All right. And, and one of the things that I will, the things about, with Hubsan and Fimi, it was good. It was good for the competition. Okay. And then, how it was funny, everybody's saying, oh, the Mini SE, it's not coming out in the United States. We're not going to get it. They're only going to have it in Europe. Next thing you know, boom, it's on sale here in the United States.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And what a price that drone was, Rick. Oh my
God. Yeah. It's a great little drone. It's a great drone.
For that kind of a thing. And everybody's saying, how can they up them? And I said, hold on, folks. Okay. 2022 is going to be around the corner. Okay. If you think we've done a lot this year, just wait till next year. Okay. Because I'm sure, Frank's going to want another Mini out there, a Mini 3, that's going to have everything. What they're going to do, and this is something I've talked with Ron and Marcus about it, is, the thing about it is this, is out of the box, that Mini 3, except for having to do firmware updates, okay, it's ready to go. All right. It's gonna rock and roll. And I tell people, I said, just kind of hang on here. Okay. Enjoy the drone you have, but wait, good things are coming in 2022.
Yeah, if you're a new flyer and you haven't got a drone yet, you got a lot of choice out there. I mean, Hubsan's got a couple of great products out. The Paradigm is still a phenomenal drone. That's a very inexpensive drone that gives you high quality. DJI's got 3 flagship products: the Mini 2, the Air 2S, and now the Mavic 3. You've got Autel, who's flirting with a Mini. They're a little behind on the production, but they got a Mini coming. They have another Evo coming. The Evo 3's coming. There's a lot of tech coming. But if we're sticking with DJI, and again, I have no advanced information because I'm one of the few that I get the last minute call, right? I'm sure they've called everybody who's important and everybody who's really a big YouTube star. And then they have one drone left on the shelf. They go, I'll give Rick a call. We'll see if he wants to play with it. So I have no advanced information. But if I'm a betting man, first off, I would never bet against DJI because I'm sure they've got whatever the next product is somewhere out in China being tested already. But when you think about their market segment, there's no reason to come out with another drone in this class for a year or two at least. This thing's going to be around for a while. The sub 250 category, the Mini 2, as brilliant as it is still missing a few things. So maybe there's something coming there. I bet there's something coming there. The mid category, the 2S, has got a lot of legs, man. That's going to go for a long time. So I don't know if they're going to come out with anything there, but it wouldn't be a big deal to take a lot of this core technology and move it downstream, right? So Mavic 3's up here. Maybe the next Air product has got some of this tech in it. And then if you're thinking about the high-end stuff, right, where the Inspire lives today, that Inspire is pretty long in the tooth. I've got the Inspire 2 in the other room. That's got to be 4 years since that thing came out, 5 years maybe. I don't think they're going to build another one like the Inspire. I think what you'll see is this with some of the features from the Inspire and a slightly larger drone that'll be a pure professional. And I'll bet that drone will have a swappable camera package. So you'll have different payloads you can pop on that drone. And that would be my bets for DJI. I also think they're due for another Pocket product. I really believe that Pocket, even though the Pocket 2 is fantastic, they can do some cool things with the Pocket 3. And then the last thing I'll say about DJI is they've never really wandered into the 360 space for cameras. Wouldn't it be cool, right? Like, I got the Insta360 back there. I use it a lot. Cool camera. DJI has not done anything in that space yet. So there's possibilities.
Yeah, that's a kind of like an unknown territory. Well, I know Ron had it. Ron Brown has it, and he loves his Insta360. Absolutely loves it, and what a great product it is.
Yeah, it's idiot proof. You just turn it on; it records everything. Then you decide later what you want to look at. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's just, well, I've seen it because just to let you know, I have another channel, Build a Drone Reviewer Limited Edition, but it's going to be kind of getting a facelift. Okay. And what I'm going to be doing, it's going to be Bill the RC Reviewer, because one of the other things that I'm branching out and doing right now, I'm going to be flying planes. You know, I'm going to be doing cars on that, and then of course I'm going to throw, you know, drone videos on there as well. You know, but the primary emphasis on that is going to be more towards, you know, I've gotten back into flying planes. Okay. You know, I started out back in the day, and I don't know if you remember those Cox with those .49 engines, and
oh yeah,
and that's where I got started.
Scars from the props. On my
yeah. Oh yeah. You know, it's like you know, my dad, when I was 12 years old, he wouldn't even let me start them. Okay, he had to do the starting for him. But you know, that's where I got started with that. So that's going to get a makeover. So that's coming up, and I'm kind of excited about that, because you know that kind of, you know, for me, you know, that will lead me. And by the way, 2 years from now is when I'm retiring. So I'm going to have plenty of time to get out there and do a lot of stuff, you know, in the drone space and in the RC space. So I'm looking to have some fun, Rick.
Good, man. You definitely deserve it. You put in a lot of good time, and you do great things for the community. So, you know, whatever you can do to get out there and have more fun flying stuff, playing with tech is a good deal. I'm looking forward to it as well. I'm still working on a lot of different things. We're expanding the channel a lot this year beyond drones and other high-tech stuff, because the way my channel started was I spent a lot of time upstairs over dinner talking about technology, and I really think my family was like, dude, you need a YouTube channel. And I don't think it was kind of them to say that, to go to start a YouTube channel. I think they were just saying, basically, get the hell out of the kitchen and go talk to other people about it. We don't want to talk about it anymore. So I investigate a lot of tech, and I love talking about it. One of the things I've done a lot, and I've got a lot more coming, is around the portable power stations, because I find myself using them a lot out in the field. And I'll tease you a little bit. Here's one that you're going to end up buying, I guarantee it. I don't know if you've seen this one or not. It's from a company called EcoFlow. I'm working with these guys. It's called the EcoFlow River Mini, and it's a 300 watter. Charge it up in less than an hour, and you can take it out in the field with you. It's got a wireless charger on the top that'll do Qi charging. But the key you're going to love about it is it's got a USB-C connection on the front. That's 100 watts. Now, for you to charge those batteries in your Mavic 3, you need to use 65 watts. This unit with the charging hub on my seat in the front of the car will charge my batteries for the Mavic 3 while I'm flying. And I've gotten 5 full charges out of this on a full charge here. So I can have it in the car. I can have it with me in the field. It weighs about 6 pounds. You can take it with you anywhere. It's got AC, so you can plug in AC on the side. It's got a DC port on the front, 3 USB-A connections. I think it's the perfect portable power bank for drone flyers. So I've got a review coming to that pretty soon. But the challenge with those is they tend to be really big and heavy, and you don't want to take them with you. This one's small enough where I throw it right in my bag, and then I've got 4 or 5 extra charges on the Mavic 3 batteries when I'm out in the field. So
that's so smart, Rick. You know, and I know, and I've done some looking on that too, because you know, one of the things that I'm interested in for the house down here in Florida is, you know, obviously, you know, we're in a hurricane area, and one of the things that I want to get is like one of the bigger, you know, I wanted to get something like that, but only on a bigger scale. That's not, you know, number one, you know, my number one requirement for something like that is solar powered. You know, be able to recharge it via solar. You know, during something like that. And also too, I want to get something that's going to be able to run, say, a refrigerator, a freezer, you know, a microwave, that kind of a thing. So yeah, that's my space. So you find something good along those lines.
Stay tuned.
Give me a shout.
I have their whole line of portable power banks, starting with this one, which is their smallest, 240 watts, all the way up through their whole house power supplies. And those are on wheels, 240 volts out the back end. And you can put an extra battery on it. So you can actually have it in your basement, trickle charging from your electric. When the power goes down, you can use that to power portions of your home. It'll run a dryer. It won't run your air conditioning, obviously, because that's a big motor, but it'll run pretty much a lot of the stuff in your home off that one unit. They're not cheap, but it's a nice way to go. The other thing I didn't point out about this one, I'm not trying to do a commercial for it, but I'm just flying with it again today. I'm discovering stuff left and right. You can actually be charging this while you're using it. So you can plug this into your cigarette lighter and it powers through it. So I can use a cigarette lighter, convert it to 110 as an inverter. And when I take it out of the car, it's fully charged. So I take it out in the field with me to charge my batteries. So it's a smart unit. Those guys are, some of the engineers that started that company came from DJI. So that's kind of how I got hooked up with them. Yeah. So smart little company. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been following them for a while, and I really like their products, but you just sold me on that. Okay.
It's less than $300. I know that sounds expensive, but it's about the cost of a battery plus, you know, what you're paying for the batteries on the Mavic 3. But for me, that's indispensable because I can charge them in the car, but only when I'm driving. Then I get out to a lake and I'm flying for an hour. That's alongside of me charging a battery while I'm up in the air with my drone. So, and my phone and my tablet and my controller and everything I want to plug in. So it's pretty cool.
That's good. That's really, really good. You
Yeah.
know, it's an exciting time, Rick. You know, there's a lot to look forward to. We got a lot coming up. I know in the hotel space, they got some things coming up. I know, like you said, they're a little behind with production on the Mini, but that's going to be a good drone. That's something that interests me as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. You know, I know the Evo 3 is going to be coming out sometime next year, and that's going to be good. And again, you know, one of these things that I say, especially about Autel, because my very first drone was an X-Star Premium. Okay.
Yeah. Good drone.
And it was a very good drone. You know, and the thing I've always said about Autel from day one is their hardware was impeccable. Okay. But back in the day with the X-Star Premium, their software left a lot to be desired. Okay.
It did. It did.
And you know, it ended up when I sold it, they were still going on with a beta version for their firmware because they never fully baked it by the time it was done. But you know, their customer service has been exceptional. You know, when I was dealing with them, I had no problems whatsoever. I got like 3 new batteries. Okay, I had 1 bad battery in a bunch. They just said, you know what, go ahead, dispose of those. You know, at a safe place. We'll send you 3 new ones, no charge. You know, and they did
That's
that.
Great.
You know, they're a good company, and I you know, and I'm looking forward to seeing some good things from them. The only other thing, and one of the last things that I kind of want to touch on is, you know, with Skydio, you know, it seems like they're kind of heading towards the commercial end of things more than the consumer end of things. And I know a lot of people are kind of like, huh? You know, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I think, I'm going to get controversial here when I get too deep into this, but Skydio, I think, is moving in that direction as their primary focus. They've hired a lot of ex-military people to sort of be their spokesmen, to go talk to government agencies in the U.S. and elsewhere. They built that commercial version of it that's being used by the military and private contractors and all kinds of industrial companies. I think that's their direction. And if you look closely at what Parrot's done, kind of the same thing, right? They've kind of, I don't want to say abandoned, but they backed away from the consumer space and moved into the commercial space. And my theory on this, and I always get into a arm wrestling match with people on the channel over this, is there's this ridiculous notion out there that China's spying on us through drones, through DJI specifically. And every time somebody brings that up, I don't know, my blood pressure goes up a couple of notches, because the technological side of it, if you knew anything about how technology works, it's impossible for them to use that. Not to mention, it's the worst way to collect any kind of useful information. But enough people, some goofy people in government, one guy out of your state down there, I'm not going to mention him by name, but one of your guys is pushing that theory of like, we got to ban these foreign drones. We got to ban Chinese drones from the US. So what does that do? It creates this gigantic opportunity for other companies to fill that void, quite a bit higher price drones that do not quite as much as a DJI Mavic 2 would do. So with Skydio, I think they sense that opportunity to move into that space and really become dominant in that commercial space. But I think that maybe one more model that was in development when they put that one out. I don't see them as a long-term player in the consumer space. I just don't. And same with Parrot. I mean, they've, for all intents and purposes, moved into commercial.
Yeah. And, you know, and just to answer, you know, your question about that, you know, there have been a couple of audits that have come out. And I know when, oh my gosh, he just left DJI for the robotics company. Up in Boston. You know, I had him on the show about a year or so ago. And, you know, one of the things, Brendan.
Yeah, pretty good friend of mine.
Yeah, he's very good guy, very good guy. You know, and he was saying with me, you know, it's like, you know, audits, 2 independent audits have come out and showed they're absolutely clean. Okay, that there's nothing that has gone on. And you know, and I kind of joked around like with Marcus, and I'm saying, oh, okay, you know, they're going to find out how wide the Snake River Canyon is, you know, where Marcus flies. Or they're going to see how long the beach is at Margate where Ron flies, or they're going to see Clearwater Beach on a sunny day when I fly around here. I mean, seriously. I mean,
it's even bigger than that, though, Bill. I mean, I know Brendan well, and I know he was incredibly frustrated by the snake oil that's being spread around the drones and their capabilities and what's going on. And people, it seems like we're in a time right now politically where every opinion counts the same. Like the facts don't count as much as opinions. Everybody's got an opinion about stuff, and that somehow shouldn't have the same weight. It has to be based in facts. So when you look at the technology, and I've gone around the horn with these guys at DJI a couple of times. I interviewed them. I asked them for advanced versions of those tests they did. I got private copies of that were serialized where I could read through the Kiva testing on exactly what they tested. And those came out clean. They did that, independent third party actually went out, didn't get a drone from DJI that they could have made special. They went out to a Best Buy and bought drones and took them into their testing labs and tested them. They came out with nothing. What they came out with was problems with the underlying Android operating system that was asking for personal information. So there's no invasion of privacy going on there, and I'm convinced of that from an engineering perspective. But the dumb answer is, think about the amount of work it would take for a company in China to hack the drone, an edge device, hack the drone, to collect information, and then somehow, unbeknownst to you, take that large amount of data, somehow get it back up to the internet through your phone connection, because that's the only connection you have to the internet, Wi-Fi. And then would that be actionable data? Could they not get the same data from the 8 billion phones that are walking around the US, or the security cameras that are actually in the facility at the nuclear plant? Wouldn't it be easier to hack that, or hack the servers where that data is being kept? Like, it doesn't make any sense from any perspective that they've hacked your drone and they're counting on Bill the drone reviewer to show up at some nuclear plant and get the perfect angle they need to understand what's going on there.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't make sense from any angle.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Rick, and and I know who you're talking about here in Florida, and I know he's a wild card. That guy, he's really irresponsible with this issue. And then Marcus had brought up about one person from the FCC said, "Oh, we need to put DJI on the covered list." Okay. And I'm like, okay, it's like I go back to the movie, show me the money, okay?
Yeah.
Show me the money kind of a thing. And
I'm the same, Bill. Every time somebody brings it up, I'm like, show me the data of where that's happening. Show me one report that's pointed to something that ended up in the hands of the Chinese because of these drones. And the FCC guy, that's my latest rant. Did you hear the quote he came out with last week? He was talking about artificial intelligence. Now he's going after Boston Robotics because of that video that was out with the robot jumping around and stuff. And he wants to ban that technology, saying, I saw the movie iRobot. I know where this ends. That's his metric. That's his reference point. It's like, how do these people get elected and be in positions of responsibility when they don't understand the concept of what they're talking about? It's mind-boggling, quite honestly.
Yeah. That's like, okay, well, next thing you know, we're going to have warp drive. Okay. I mean,
right.
Yeah, it just gets to the totally absurd kind of thing. So,
it's just crazy. But I think they're going to be fine. I don't see DJI moving towards a commercial side of it. They love the consumer space. We're buying all their products. People are loving flying them. So I'm hoping they don't end up too heavy in that commercial space.
I don't think they will. I mean, their agriculture drones are doing very well for them. That segment has gone very well. Like I said, 2022, we're going to see, it's around the corner. We're going to see some good tech space. And the other thing is, before we close up shop here, is I said timing was everything with this. Okay. Because, it's before Black Friday, there's been product here in the United States. And that's one of the things before the release. And we had talked about it earlier with the original Mavic Pro and the lack of availability.
Yep.
We all remember that pain point, and it was a pain point. Okay. But I preached this, and I said, guys are saying, oh, there's those container ships off California. I said, guys, they're sitting in warehouses right now. DJI has one up in Atlanta. I think they have one up in New Jersey. I think there's one in Chicago, not in California. I said they were sitting in warehouses, guys. They're already there. Okay. So don't worry. People were talking about that. I said, don't worry about that. So,
yeah. One last thing I want to say, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but you're going to stumble over this when you get your drone. And I know there's been a lot of scuttlebutt on my channel about it as well, where the drone's out and all the features aren't enabled at launch. Mm-hmm. And that's the case with every drone, right? They release it and then they release the firmware to fix it later on. And there's the debate, should we release it, not release it? Well, if we wait, then they can't fly it in the meantime. So the features that are coming in January for this drone, I have the alpha software. I have the beta software. So I've been running it on the drone. I can tell you all the features they're promising in the release work in the drone today. They just haven't been QC'd yet. So I've been spending the last couple of weeks with this beta firmware and the alpha firmware originally, testing those features. They're rock solid. So it's not like, oh, they got to develop them. Oh, maybe they'll have them. They work. It's just not there yet because it's not general release software. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them before January, but I think they're being conservative and saying end of Christmas, December, January timeframe. But don't wait on that. It's not like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
they'll get it or maybe they won't. I have the software and I'm running it on the drone and it works. So,
and that's what I told people. I said, folks, I said, development doesn't happen, with blinders on. Okay. It's been in, everything, bringing all the pieces and parts together to make the Mavic 3. Okay. It's an orchestrated, production. And part of that is obviously the software. And part of that is, having been in software, my entire career for 30 years, software doesn't happen in a day. Okay. It takes time, and it takes time to go through iterations to get it tested and everything, and to get it to a point,
Yep.
And a lot of times, you may have, 3/4 to, 85 to 90% of it ready to go. And, at launch, and saying, is it a key feature? Well, it's not critical. Is it critical to the functionality of the drone? Will it cause any problems flying? No.
Right.
Will it cause any problems with the cameras? No. Let's wait. Okay. Let's get it right. Let's get it wait.
Right.
And that's one of the things about DJI.
Yep. No, I agree. So don't fear that. It's going to be fine. Maybe a little frustrating because all that stuff's not in there, but it's in here and it's working. So it's
That's
just a matter of
awesome
them going
to hear,
through the
Rick.
paces and getting that sorted.
I know the audience people were excited about, when they found out you were going to be on the show tonight. People were super excited because, your technical knowledge always just, and that's what I tell people. I said, subscribe to Billy, subscribe to Kelly's channel, but really I said, one of the channels you want to get some great technical knowledge, it's from Rick. Okay. Because Rick has that technical background, and he explains things in a way, he's not going to shoot it over your head. He's going to hit you right in your eyeballs. Okay. Make it easy to understand and very straightforward.
Well, thank you, Bill. That's kind of you to say that. I just love talking about tech, so I'm glad it's helping. If people are enjoying it, come on back. We got plenty more coming.
Well, we're looking forward to 2022, and I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. And make sure you smash that like button before you leave the show, and tell others about it that Rick was on tonight, because I'm sure a lot of people will want to watch this broadcast. I mean, it was I got a lot of thumbs up from this when everybody found out you were going to be on today, and with good reason, because you run a great channel, Rick. You have, and I love the variety on your channel, and I love now that you're going to be doing the Echo Flow and the power stations. I
Yep.
love that, because I'm into that kind of stuff too. So
Very cool. And Bill, just let me say to you, great job on your channel too, man. I love it. I watch it. I have my Bill the Drone Reviewer mug right up there on the shelf there. I drink from it often. And I appreciate what you do as well. So thanks very much for having me on, and I'll come back anytime you want me.
sounds good, Rick. Well, as always, everybody, take care, and remember, it's a great day to fly. We'll see.